Whenever a town has been around as long as Linglestown, Pennsylvania, there are bound to be stories of ghosts and hauntings. Wenrich Cemetery, beside St. Thomas United Church of Christ, was the first cemetery in town and is the final resting place of many local legends. Town founder Thomas Lingle, John Eisenhower, great-great-uncle of U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower, and Princess Whitefeather, a Native American princess from the Quinnipiac Sioux tribe of the Dakota Territory, are all buried here. So it is no surprise that there have been reports of ghosts. According to Mrs. Mary Zettelmoyer, a friend of hers, Mrs. Mary Robbins, experienced some strange incidents in Wenrich Cemetery. One evening in either 1940 or 1941, Mrs. Robbins was returning home and she decided to take a shortcut through the cemetery. At one grave, she saw what appeared to be a hot vapor rising off and she hurried past. A week or so later, at around midnight, she was cutting through the cemetery again and saw the hot vapor rising out of the grave. As she passed it, a hand reached up and grabbed her shoe, pulling it off. She ran home but returned the next day, and her shoe was nowhere to be found. Over the years, many women claimed to feel hands pulling at their nylons when they walked through the cemetery. As another local legend goes, for many years people saw a shadowy figure waiting along Linglestown Road between St. Thomas Church and Piketown Road. If someone seemed to be hurrying down the road, a shadowy arm would entwine with theirs as if it was trying to hold the traveler back, and then the spirit would follow for a quarter of a mile, trying to get the traveler to return with him. When the road was widened, the bank of Beaver Creek was cut away and the skeleton of a man was found. There were no buttons or trinkets found with remains, no way to verify who it had been. When people came out to see the skeleton, some of the older folks shared the story of a man who had disappeared after driving cattle to Harrisburg back in 1829. He was last seen alive at the hotel, now the Eagle Hotel, enjoying drinks with some other gentlemen before disappearing into the night. As he returned home along Linglestown Road, his pockets full of gold, he was jumped upon and killed. The murderers took all his gold and buried him in the bank of Beaver Creek on the side of the road. The skeleton was buried in the corner of the Wenrich churchyard, and the ghost on Linglestown Road disappeared. The summer of 1967 was an exciting one for the skies over south central Pennsylvania. On April 1st, 1967, 3 children were playing outside their homes on Linglestown Road when they saw a large round object about 200 yards away from them descend close to the ground. They said the object made no noise and alternated between colors. For 2 minutes it shot a ray of light at the power lines before sending it back up into the evening sky. The children ran for safety, and a neighbor stepped outside just in time to watch the UFO fly away, leaving a, quote, jet trail in its wake, unquote. For the next several months, there were sightings all over the area. The coverage led to crowds and parties on the rural back roads and fields watching the night sky. In fact, the crowds were so large and spirited that vendors began showing up and setting up shop. In July 1967, the sightings brought in Edward Condon and his University of Colorado UFO project, sponsored by the United States Air Force and sometimes informally called the Condon Committee. They worked with the local authorities, witnesses, and the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena and concluded that there was sufficient evidence to warrant a full investigation. According to Dr. Gerald Rothberg, a senior member of the committee, "I've never seen such remarkable skies. I can readily see why there are so many UFO reports from around here." The descriptions of the UFOs were varied.
It was huge and shaped like a cigar.
Small, round, and shaped like an oversized basketball, it danced all around.
These men got out and scrambled around, but you couldn't understand at all what they were saying.
The Colorado UFO project team set cameras on top of Harrisburg Hospital and monitored the skies for 17 nights. The cameras took almost 10,000 pictures, only 12 of which were listed as having images that were questionable. When all was said and done, the team concluded that, quote, even though scores of UFOs were reported during that time, that the investigator could find nothing to examine with his instruments and nothing remarkable on thousands of all-sky camera exposures, with the exceptions noted, is highly significant, unquote. Many UFO investigators claim Edward Condon was helping the government cover up rather than investigate what was happening. Why did the all-sky cameras only capture 12 questionable images when people throughout the area were seeing as many sightings per day? Why were those 12 questionable images never released to the public? By the fall of 1967, the UFO sightings tapered off, but they weren't the last sightings in the area. In 1997, a small group of people standing in a church parking lot near Linglestown claimed to have seen a flying triangle with 12 lights. In September of 2008, 3 triangle crafts were seen over Interstate 81 in the Linglestown area before drifting toward the horizon and disappearing.